Happy Monday morning. So let's get this week started with a quick look at the Bitcoin chart because we had the weekly close. Bitcoin is currently back above 31,000 as I'm making this. So let's dive straight into the charts. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button down below, click the notification bell. If you want to get on my email list, first link down in the description below. You could also follow on Instagram, Twitter, and join our free public Telegram. The links are in the description down below. Alright, so as you can see, we are now on the weekly chart. We are currently at just over 31,000. So we had a nice pump back above that 31. First we went to 32,000, we dropped back down to 29,000 and some change, and now we're back at 31. So we're still stuck very much within that range, but the nice thing is we had the tiniest little bit of a green weekly close after 9 weeks of consecutive red candles, and now we're starting the week off with some green. It's obviously still very early in the week. On Monday the US hasn't opened yet, so we'll see how this week is going to end up going. It is completely possible that we do get some sort of a relief bounce, but again, we are still by many indicators and by many metrics in a bearish trend, and there's still a lot of work to be done to be able to flip this bear trend into a bullish trend. So in the short term, we are going to have to wait and see how June plays out, because there is a lot of interesting developments around this current kind of price level. And we are seeing a lot of historic metrics pointing towards a potential bottom. I've already made multiple videos on this. I made a video a couple weeks ago with proof of various charts that the bottom, according to historical metrics, is almost in. I also made a video about the 3-day death cross that would have predicted the bottom of this entire bear trend coming somewhere between 7 and 15 June. It is the 6th of June. So maybe it is possible that the bottom could be in, but that's the tricky part. Are we at a bottom? Could this bottom be in, or do we still get a final capitulation wick? And I know the tricky part here is that a lot of people are expecting 20,000 to 14,000. Some are even talking about $11,000 or $10,000 Bitcoin. And just like with these markets, in the bullish periods, right at the very top when we're at 60K, people are calling for 100K and 200K. And at the bottom, people are calling for much lower. So there is that sentiment to be careful of. On top of that, I just yesterday published this tweet with this entire thread on Twitter. So I'll link to it down below so you can go and check this out afterwards. Give it a like, give it a retweet if you find it valuable. And basically I made this long thread where I share why I think the bottom is in. It's basically similar to the video that I made previously, but just with updated charts where we look at, for example, the 2-year multiplier, the golden ratio multiplier, the Puel multiple, the MVRV Z-score. We're looking at all these charts and all these metrics that are basically in bottom territory, that have marked bottoms in 2015, 2018, March 2020. A lot of all these different indicators are all in that same bottom range. So all of that combined with the negative sentiment, with people betting on us going much lower, I think we're very close to a bottom. So go and read that Twitter thread if you haven't done so already. I will link to it down in the description below so you can check that out. But basically that's the tricky part. Are we at a bottom here, or do we get some sort of final capitulation down to the bottom? And if you zoom in on the daily, another thing that is interesting here that I want to point out to you is the following. So we actually have also a bullish RSI divergence on the daily chart, which a lot of the time helps to form those final bottoms. You can see over here in the May to July bottom over here, before we had this massive rally from 28,000 to 69,000, we had the bullish divergence set up. It means that the price is going lower, but the RSI is not confirming that and shows a divergence with a higher low versus a lower low in price. We also had here a period of 2 to 3 months to consolidate and to accumulate and to really form this bottom. Now, if you look over here, we had this initial low over here. So we went down from November all the way up to about January. Okay, then we had this bounce, a sideways period, and we made a new low on the price. But the RSI made a higher low in the same way it did with this bottom. Now, we could, get multiple touches as we've seen here. So we could still get a retouch of 25,000, maybe a wick slightly below it. But the criteria are coming very close, and combined with all the other stuff that I've just shown you, that I put in the tweet and that I've shown in my previous video, the criteria are pretty close to us being near or at a bottom, right? So you can also see from January to about May, we've had a few months here where people have been able to accumulate in the same way at about a 3-month accumulation over here. Now, one thing I want to return back to is this fractal of the S&P 500. So even though the time frame here is much longer, it's obviously a 20-year time period, that is irrelevant. What matters is the pattern and the setup here, which seems to be still very, very similar to what is happening with Bitcoin. You can see we had the double top, so the slightly higher high over here, right? Very similar to Bitcoin. Bitcoin did that 66,000, 69,000, and it dropped. Here, in the same fashion, we zoom in, you can see we had a sweep of these lows. So anyone who was long, who had their stop just under that, they got taken out, they got liquidated, or maybe they just panic sold and they thought, you know, if we go below these previous lows, we're going to sell. That's exactly what happened. We got that sweep, but then instead of crashing all the way down, it actually reversed here. And then we started this huge run up, which took us to more than, I think, more than 3x. More than 3x the previous top. So the interesting thing to note here on the SPX is that basically we had a similar setup. You can see the RSI divergence at this point too with the bottom. You can see it over here too, right? We had the RSI divergence, so we get these 3 tests over here. The RSI is rising and then a massive rally. Same thing over here. We get 3 tests to the downside or 2 tests to the downside, lower lows, but the RSI is making higher lows, and then we get a huge rally. So you can see how similar that setup is to our current setup. Going back to Bitcoin over here, just after having seen that SPX pattern, okay, we have the double top, slightly higher high, 66,000, 69,000. Then we had a sweep of these lows in the exact same way. We have the bullish divergence here, we have the bullish divergence here. So it is almost identical to this SPX pattern, the setup. You can also find examples of it in other charts if you go looking for it enough. So technically, the criteria for the bottom being in my opinion, has been met. So whether this is the absolute bottom, whether this wick was the bottom at 25,000, whether we retest that, maybe we overshoot a little bit and, you know, get a wick down to 20,000 or slightly below 20,000, that's still a possibility. But just in the big picture, I think we are very close in time and in price to putting in a bottom for this crypto bear market. And obviously time is going to tell, but look at all this evidence, look at all the charts that I've shared there on the Twitter tweet. Go and read that if you haven't, link it in the description down below, and look at everything I've shown you here with the divergences, with the sweep of the lows. So if that ends up being our roadmap for Bitcoin, what I've shown you on the SPX, and we get a 3x of this top over the next, say, 2 to 3 years, that would mean we are looking at potentially somewhere between, let's say, 2 to 3x, $140,000 to $210,000 for Bitcoin within the next 2 to 3 years, based on that fractal pattern. And if you look at what's happening in the world, how quickly Bitcoin is starting to grow, all the issues with inflation in developing countries, more and more and more, where people are starting to realize, hey, you know, my fiat currency isn't safe. It doesn't hold its purchasing power. Maybe the banks aren't safe, so more and more people can flood into Bitcoin. What happens if we get more stimulus? You know, there's a lot of cash sitting on the sidelines. Other people have theories that if the stock market crashes, cash has to go somewhere. Where is it going to go? Gold, silver, Bitcoin. So there is really a case fundamentally also for a lot of money to potentially flow into Bitcoin and to really start a massive rally while everyone is still expecting, you know, sub 20,000 and an extended long bear market period. Just wanted to share this info with you. I thought it was interesting. There's so many different data points here that are basically pointing towards us being at or near a bottom. You know, whether it's a couple thousand lower here or there, whether it's a couple weeks or maybe a month or two between now and really what ends up being the bottom. Historically, we're close enough. And then also a strategy. You know, if you're trying to pick the bottom, it's basically impossible or pure luck to try and find the exact bottom. But looking at everything that I've shared with you, all these historic levels that we're currently at, showing that we could be at a really good buying opportunity, well, a strategy that could be followed is simply to dollar cost average at these levels where it's historically oversold. So you might not get the exact bottom, but you can take a risk capital allocation, divide it into a few equal parts, whether that's 4 or 5 or 10, and simply just put it into the market while we are at these historic oversold levels, and put it into the market in equal intervals, like every week or every 2 weeks or every month. You take an equal portion of that risk capital allocated into the market, and that way you get a decent average position, even though you don't get the exact bottom. Maybe you buy some at 31, maybe it drops to 28, it drops to 25, and you get points at all those different levels, and your average wouldn't be the exact bottom, but it'll be pretty decent since you're averaging in at historic oversold conditions. Obviously not financial advice. I'm just sharing this with you guys. Please make your own decision, invest at your own risk. But the dollar cost average strategy, and another thing to also keep in mind, is basically wait for confirmation. It means you might want to buy in a bit higher, but you have more confirmation that the trend could have been flipped. And there's lots of things, I've shared that on this channel many times. So you can look at the 50-day moving average, for example, in blue. Once we get back above that, the trend tends to move higher. We have the 200-day moving average. We have the 50-week moving average. There's all sorts of indicators that you can look at. Once we flip those, or once we flip certain support levels and we are back in at certain levels, then it's more likely that the trend is flipped, and you could buy in there with a higher chance of continuation to the upside versus continuation to the downside. So those are all interesting things, interesting strategy. If you want to learn more from me, come and join my Intelligent Cryptocurrency membership. Got so many tutorials, so much analysis, so many updates. You also get to be part of our Discord group. I'm in there every day sharing charts, ideas, analysis, just like this, a whole lot more. You can sign up, second link in the description down below. Just go to intelligentcryptocurrency.com/join. You have a full 60 days to try it out. Come and learn with us, come and hang out with us. And if you're not happy, you can get a full refund, no strings attached. But that is where you can learn. That is where you get all these updates, all this info. Second link in the description down below. Come and join us, come and learn. We are getting ready for this next bull run, which I believe is coming sooner than most people think. So that is it for this video. Please smash the like button, share this with your friends. Don't forget to check out the Twitter thread that I linked down below. And I will see you in the members area and in the next video.